Hello everyone and welcome to our live coverage of NROL-57 mission launching from the west coast, that is from the pad Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. We hope you all are doing fine and excited about the upcoming SpaceX launch. If this is your first time here, hi, my name is Dipto Maitra. I'll be your host providing commentary for today's mission launch, and you are watching AstroYonder live.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around.
Houston, we see a nominal MECO. Welcome to space.
Today's mission is NROL-57 for the National Reconnaissance Office, also referred to as the NRO. We are awaiting for a Falcon 9 liftoff at 11:49 p.m. Pacific time from Vandenberg Space Force Base for SpaceX, launching the NROL-57 mission, which will follow a somewhat southeast trajectory. This is the NRO's 8th proliferated architecture reconnaissance satellite launch and the second of this year. But it's worth mentioning the upcoming NROL-69 mission launch, which is now targeting no earlier than March 24th from Cape Canaveral, will not include any proliferated architecture reconnaissance satellite, meaning that the launch will be with a traditional but fully classified NRO launch. The proliferated architecture is a constellation of different spy and relay satellites based on SpaceX's Starshield. Also, this is a joint venture of SpaceX and Northrop Grumman building the payload together. Today's flight carries a national security payload designed, built, and operated by the National Reconnaissance Office, and the NROL missions provide critical information to more than 500,000 government users, including every member of the intelligence community, 24 domestic agencies, nations, military, lawmakers, and decision makers. Now, before moving on to the mission details, firstly, on behalf of AstroYonder team and moderators, we express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone for being a part of today's launch. We really appreciate you being here. A big thanks to our amazing YouTube community for being here today as we provide detailed coverage of space launches, complete with extensive stats and thorough insights. Also, I would like to take a moment to apologize for not being able to stream the past few important launches and live events. Actually, things took an unexpected turn in my personal life. My uncle had been battling cancer, which got to be diagnosed at the very last stage, that is to be the fourth stage. And the middle of it all, we lost him suddenly. It's been a really tough time for my family and me, and I had to step away to be there for them. I know how much you all look forward to the past streams, and it truly breaks my heart that I couldn't be there to share those moments with you. I appreciate your patience, your support, and understanding for this hardest time which I went through. And I'm here back again, and I promise to continue bringing you the best coverage I can. Once again, just want to mention that is not to withdraw any sympathy from your end. It's just my apology for my YouTube community and my family over here. So before moving on, would like to welcome Chicago apartment Onodo team for tuning in. We hope you will be enjoying the stream, and also would like to welcome Fairmaid, one of our moderator here, and my, you can say, a support system, always being there with me, guiding me in different things and being with me in the hardest time. Thanks, Fairmaid, for being here, and really happy to see you once again and to come back to the mainstream of life after going through such a hard time. I hope you are doing fine, Fairmaid. Also would like to welcome Dawn Porter joining us from Thailand. Thanks, Dawn, for tuning in. It's been a long that you came here joining us. And thanks for joining us, Golf 2818. I hope that's not your actual name, but we'll be referring you with this YouTube username. And thanks for your consoling words. But anyways, it's a fact of life, and I had to accept it. And also would like to thanks for joining us. Hope you will be enjoying the stream. Now let's move on to the mission back again. So today we are super excited to bring you the coverage of NROL-57 launch, marking the 33rd Falcon 9 and the SpaceX's 35th launch of the year. NROL-57 also marks the NRO's 76th launch since public disclosure of launches began back in December 1996. This mission also marks the 12th NRO launch on a Falcon 9. Just a heads up, it's me running the show for our launches, so if we hit any technical issues, hang tight, but nothing to worry. I will do my best to walk you through the Falcon 9 rocket launch happening in about 38 minutes from now. So far, SpaceX reports that the weather is looking good for today's Falcon 9 launch opportunity and the range is ready to support. We are having mostly clear skies with 26% of cloud cover and northeasterly wind speed of 9.3 miles per hour. The wind gusts of 22 miles per hour as well. Also would like to mention the we don't receive any official weather forecast, launch weather forecast from the 45th Weather Squadron for the Vandenberg flights. And the weather officers are keeping a keen eye on the weather for any probability of violations. Once again, just to repeat myself, SpaceX is currently targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Vandenberg at 11:49 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday, March 20th, which corresponds to 2:49 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, March 21st. We hope that they are able to launch on time and not have to push off too far. But if for some reason we don't have the launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, that is Friday, March 21st, with launch window opening at 11:31 p.m. Pacific Time, 2:31 a.m. Eastern Time on March 22nd. Now let's talk about the payload details. Today's mission is NROL-57 for the National Reconnaissance Office, also referred to as the NRO. This will be the 8th operational launch of the NRO's new proliferated architecture. We don't have any images of the payload as it's a classified mission launch, but on your screen you can see some declassified images of the NROL-1 to 9 early SOS satellite and the NROL-111 payload images. That's all I have to show you guys, just to give a context of how the payload looks like. Out of the past 7 launches, all the previous 6 proliferated architecture missions also took flight on Falcon 9, and the NROL-153 back in January this year, also being supported by the Falcon 9. This is the 8th batch of the NRO's new imaging satellite constellation built by SpaceX and Northrop Grumman. The satellites were built under a classified $1.8 billion contract awarded by the NRO in 2021 to SpaceX and Northrop Grumman jointly. According to some sources, satellites for today will have an inclination of around 69.7 to 70 degrees, with the low Earth orbit altitude of being around 310 kilometers. But this is not officially confirmed. Part of the NRO-57 mission likely consists of several Starshield satellites, or perhaps all the satellites are Starshield, but we can't say for sure as there is limited disclosure about the payload details. But some sources mentions that approximately 20 Starshield plus some Starlink satellites are going to be launched. Again, this has not been confirmed by SpaceX, Northrop Grumman, or the National Reconnaissance Office. Further payload details for this mission is unknown due to the classified nature of the NRO. We don't know about how many satellites will launch on this NRO mission or the projected size of the new constellation. As mentioned before, today's flight carries the national security payload designed, built and operated by the National Reconnaissance Office, and this satellite delivers intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, which is acronymed as ISR. In military operation, ISR plays a critical role which involves gathering information about enemy forces, battlefield conditions, and other relevant intelligence. ISR encompasses complex technologies, tools, and techniques used for surveillance and reconnaissance. Land, sea, air, and space platforms all contribute to the ISR efforts in the supporting operations. So that's all about the payload details which I have for you guys to share with. Now let's quickly move on and take a look at the flight record for the booster supporting today's NROL-57 mission launch. The booster with tail number 1088 supporting today's mission is quite a young one with 3 previous flights in its record, including one NROL mission, that is the NROL-126. I guess that was in the November of last year. Next one is the SpaceX's Rideshare Transporter 12 mission and the recently NASA's SpaceX and Punch mission. As of now, no Starlink missions being supported by this booster. Currently awaiting its 4th flight, just about 31 minutes away. Now here is the main part of the boosters supporting today's mission is that the booster's turnaround time as of today is just 9 days, which is a new record breaker for the quickest booster turnaround time by around 4 days. Previously, the quickest booster turnaround time was 13 days, 12 hours and 34 minutes, and this record was held by the booster with tail number 1080 on its 13th flight between Starlink Group 6-69 and 12-1 missions. The last mission supported by today's booster was the NASA's SpaceX from here at Vandenberg on 11th of March this year. And it is worth mentioning that this booster, with all of its 3 previous launches, were from Vandenberg itself, with previous, I guess, 2 landings made on landing zone 4 and 1 on the drone ship, of course, I Still Love You. Now let's have a look at the bar graph showing the number of Falcon 9 launches each year. Before today's launch, SpaceX completed its 32nd Falcon 9 launch for this year with the Starlink Group 12-25 mission launch from Cape Canaveral on 18th of March, obscuring the number of annual launches made till 2021. And with today's launch of this NRO mission, the bar graph depicts 33 Falcon 9 launches for 2025. SpaceX is now less than the halfway to the number of launches made in the year 2022. And previously, SpaceX, as we know, completed 132 launches of Falcon 9 last year, marking a year with the highest annual launches to date for SpaceX. And according to Elon's previous tweet, possibly we could see around 180 Falcon 9 launches this year. So let's keep our fingers crossed. And I will be skipping the pre-launch timeline as it's a typical Falcon 9 launch. But just for a quick knowledge, and the deviation in the pre-launch timeline is that the strong back reclining process at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center differs from here at Vandenberg. Here at Vandenberg, we recline the strong back about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9, whereas at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center, we recline it about 1.5 degrees. So that's all the deviation you can say we will be having for the pre-launch timeline in today's Falcon 9 flight. Moving on now, let's briefly step through the trajectory for today's mission. With the NRO-57 classified payload on board, the reconnaissance satellites, Falcon 9 will lift off from Space Launch Complex 4 East from Vandenberg Space Force Base for a somewhat southeasterly trajectory along the coast of Southern California, heading into its designated orbit, indicated by that green line on your screen. Although the specific orbit, trajectory, and the inclination are not known for the classified nature of the NRO launch, the red line you see indicates where the Falcon 9 first stage will land after stage separation, just a little later leaving California's coast. Today, this will be a land landing, also known as a return to launch site operation at SpaceX's landing zone 4 at Vandenberg on the west coast. This will mark the 26th landing on landing zone 4 to date and the fourth one for this year. The planned booster recovery is approximately 60 kilometers, that is from the launch site to the landing zone 4, with estimated fairing recovery approximately 450 kilometers downrange. And the stage 2 debris reentry will be in the southern Pacific Ocean after its first orbit. Now let's talk a little bit about the fairing recovery. SpaceX will utilize the recovery vessel Go Beyond to retrieve the fairing halves from the Pacific waters. The two halves of the payload fairing will be recovered farther, approximately 390 kilometers downrange from where the first stage lands on the landing zone 4, after they will smoothly splash down with the guidance of parachutes. We know SpaceX manufactures the fairing in-house with a total cost of two halves is nearly $6 million, so no wonder that SpaceX aims to recover the fairings for repetitive use, mirroring their approach with rocket boosters, upholding the motto of reusability and sustainability. Now on your screen you can see how a fairing recovery operation looks like. The recovery vessel shown on your screen is Doug in the Atlantic, but today the recovery vessel is Go Beyond here in the Pacific. Meanwhile, the other recovery vessels, Bob, Doug, and Go Cosmos on the East Coast, are being moved and are waiting for their next assignment. Now we have a request for you guys. If you feel like we are adding value to your viewing experience, please consider giving this video a like. It really helps YouTube's algorithm bring in more space lovers and rocket fans to discover this stream, helping us to build a community with amazing space enthusiasts like you. Also consider about smashing the subscribe button and turning on the bell notification as we work hard to bring you detailed streams with stats and insights. We would be super grateful for your support. Now we are nearly 5 and 13 minutes, approximately 13 minutes away from the webcast to begin. So let's just quickly go through the stats for today's mission launch. Today's launch marks the 461st SpaceX's overall launch. This launch marks the 8th batch for NRO's proliferated architecture-based constellation and the 11th dedicated non-Starlink launch of this year. This is going to be the 448th Falcon 9 launch to date. Fourth flight of this particular Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission, with tail number 1088 being in action just after 9 days. As mentioned before, this is also a new record setter for the quickest booster turnaround time, which was previously approximately 13 days. Now today's mission marks 33rd Falcon 9 launch and SpaceX's 35th overall launch of 2025. This will be the 392nd Falcon 9 booster reflight to date, that is the launch of a booster that has flown at least once before. 116th orbital launch for SpaceX, launching from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 183rd overall launch from this pad. Now moving on to some reusability statistics. This launch marks 376th Falcon 9 booster reflight to date. This will be the 4th landing on landing zone 4 for this year and the 26th landing in total for this particular landing zone, marking SpaceX's 6th ground landing for this year. Fourth landing of the first stage booster with tail number 1088. And with this mission's first stage landing, SpaceX will be having its 86th overall land landing, marking 402nd Falcon 9 landing to date, and the 421st SpaceX's overall landing to date. Well, the landing stats on the SpaceX site is not the same as I'm mentioning, as because I guess they did consider the previous landing failure, which was, you can say, the partial landing failure for the boost for the mission of Starlink 12-20 mission, and they are counting that landing as well, but we are not, as because that was a partial failure landing attempt. Now, speaking of ground landings, here is a look into the stats for landing zones prior to today's mission. While you guys have a look to the stats, let me have a look into the chat over here. Well, Don, yes, I guess there are rattlesnakes more in Australia, although now Australia will be emerging soon as a space contender soon. And Pyramid, we do have spiders over here, and I'm scared about the spiders the most. You can throw me in front of tiger, but I won't be frightened. But spiders, it makes me the hell out of me. I hope you guys are done with the stats for the landing zone. And although today's mission doesn't involve of the landing using a drone ship, but here's a quick look into the stats for the drone ship prior to today's mission, just to give you the context and current position for the drone ship landing being made. Well, Golf 2818. Um, we hope that you can watch the launch in real, and would like to request if you can mention, and if it doesn't breach your privacy, to mention your name at least over here, because it's a little weird to call you as Golf 2818. I hope you can understand what I mean by that. But of course, if you are comfortable with that. Now let's have a look into some key stats for SpaceX launches this year, including today's mission. Right now we are about 7 minutes away from the webcast to begin. Not even 7 minutes, it's about 6 minutes, so let's just quickly wrap up with the stats. With today's mission, SpaceX will achieve its 35th launch of this year, and among these, 22 were Starlink missions, 11 are non-Starlink missions for commercial and government organizations, including today's one, and 2 Starship launches. 32 of these missions used a reused booster, including today's one. Now, if we look into the geographical distribution, we get SpaceX is having 23 launches from East Coast, with 7 launches from Space Launch Complex 39A, that is Kennedy Space Center, and 16 from Space Launch Complex 40, that is from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. On the West Coast, they will be having 10 launches with today's mission, that is from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base. As of now, 2 launches from the Gulf Coast at Starbase in Texas, with Starship's 7th and 8th test flights, and 2 Super Heavy booster catches for both the test flights. Unfortunately, we lost a ship during these both test flights, and I guess the upcoming Starship Flight 9 again, which was a little bit in a promising end that it will be an orbital launch. I hope again that one will be a suborbital, as because, well, it's my speculation, as because it's still not, SpaceX is still not done with the ship end for to make a catch attempt. Hopefully they can accomplish that with this upcoming Starship Flight 9. But well, that's my speculation, and I really hope that I get wrong for with these speculations, and we will be having the Starship 9 as a orbital flight. Now coming back to the stats for landings, they will be nailing it for the 31st time this year. Most of the landings are on drone ships with 25 landings. And for ground landings, they will pull off the 6th time today, where landing zone 1 previously witnessed 2 landings, and landing zone 4 will have its 4th landing, including one from today. Prior to today's launch, the success rate for ground landings is 98.84%. For drone ship landings, it is 96.54%, and the overall landing success rate is 97%. Now, previously we did saw a drop in the landing success rate due to a failed landing attempt during the Starlink 8-6 mission, which involved the a shortfall of Gravitas drone ship, and now this year again the landing success rate for this year dropped to 96.77% due to the failure of the booster with tail number 1086 to make a successful landing on the just read the instruction drone ship during the Starlink Group 12-20 mission. Today's mission is the 97th launch since last mission failure, that is the Starlink 9-3 mission. Now again, this page of stats are prior to today's launch, and what we have is 134 launches in a calendar year, which is the highest. Well, just a second. This page is made on a loop, that's why it's flickering. So 134 launches in a calendar year, which is the highest annual launches to date, including 2 Falcon Heavy launches last year. But if we count the Starship launches, then it's 138, excuse me. 96 successful launches since last mission failure with Starlink 9-3 mission. 6 successful landings since last landing failure with Starlink 12-20 mission. 312 mission with at least one reused fairing, with approximately 592 number of fairing half reuses. Moving on to this year's orbital launches, including today's one. With this 58th orbital launch of the year, United States is leading with 38 launches, followed by China with 13 launches, Russia with 4 launches, and 1 launch each by India, Japan, and Europe, marking their debut for orbital launches this year. Now we have this pie chart showing orbital launches by rocket variations for this year. Falcon 9 is about to have its 33rd launch. Previously, there were 4 launches for Electron, 1 launch for New Glenn, 3 launches for Soyuz 2 rocket variants. China's Long March 3B-E variant had 4 launches, while Long March 2D, 8A, and Series 1 rockets each had 2 launches so far. On the other hand, Long March 2C, 6A, Geelong 3 rockets each had 1 launch as of now, and the slice of the pie labeled Others comprises India's GSLV Mark II, Japan's H3-22S rocket, European Space Agency's Ariane 6, and Russia's Angara rockets, each having 1 launch. So that's all for the stats we had for you guys to share with. Now I guess it's time for the webcast to begin. Well, yes. So let's move on to the webcast, and let me just quickly set up the webcast for you guys. Well, thanks team for sharing your name with us, and now it's feel more intimate to call you with that. And once again, I hope that you will get a awesome view of the launch. Right now some musics are playing on in between, and we can't play them for you guys because we can have some copyright issues. Let the audio feed to come and we will be patching it for you guys. Once again, adding value to your viewing experience is our top priority. If you feel we somewhat achieved that, please consider liking this video. It really helps YouTube's algorithm bring in more space fans and helps others to find out this stream.
Good evening. Welcome to the NROL-57 launch webcast. The Falcon 9 rocket carrying tonight's payload is live on your screen and currently awaiting liftoff from Space Launch Complex 4 East, or SLIC 4E, at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, just about 8.5 minutes from now. Hi everyone, my name is Ronnie Foreman and I am a Senior Sales Manager here at SpaceX. Tonight's mission carries a national security payload designed, built, and operated by the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. This mission continues the NRO's cutting-edge capability of building and developing the U.S. government's largest satellite constellation in history, designed to deliver critical information that can only be obtained from the vantage point of space. Both the range and vehicle are currently green, and we are on track for an on-time liftoff today at 11:49 p.m. Pacific.
Well, just to interrupt you guys, today we won't be having any views of the payload or the second stage as per the request of NRO, and the webcast will be ending just after the first stage landing.
Here at SpaceX. This coming Monday is the anniversary of SpaceX's first launch ever, Falcon 1 Flight 1, which lifted off from Amalek Island on March 24th, 2006. While it did not complete its mission, SpaceX has come a long way since then. Falcon 1 made its final flight in 2009 before it was retired, but it paved the way for our trusty Falcon 9 rocket, which has completed 447 missions to date. Falcon 9, which you can see on your screen, is a two-stage rocket developed and manufactured by SpaceX and known for its safe, reliable, and cost-effective access to space. It is also the first orbital-class rocket capable of reflight.
Engine chill has started.
Good call out there for engine chill. Now, this first-stage booster is performing its fourth flight supporting this mission. Together, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy have completed more than 450 launches and over 380 reflights. Today, this first stage booster will be attempting to return to Earth and land at Landing Zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Rapid reusability of this kind drastically reduces launch costs, helps increase launch frequency, and enables a wide array of new government, commercial, and scientific opportunities in space. Lowering the cost of access to space is helping us take...
Stage 1 RP1 load is complete.
Good call out there for Stage 1 RP1 load. Lowering this cost of access to space is a major part in taking humanity's next steps into the solar system, whether low Earth orbit, geosynchronous orbit, interplanetary, or even deep space. Now, when costs are lower, government and commercial customers can launch more missions, which helps accelerate development. This also helps commercial satellite and private research customers afford to launch more projects to space, which helps stimulate innovation in turn here on Earth. Missions like SpaceX's Transporter and Bandwagon rideshare programs help make access to space even more affordable by sharing the cost of a single launch across many customers. So all of this is to say, reusability is the key innovation that is making space more accessible for the industry as a whole. Now back to tonight's mission. Both the weather and vehicle continue to look good for an on-time liftoff. Let's talk about what to expect in the lead-up.
Coming up shortly, the Transporter Erector, or the TE, will retract away from the Falcon rocket. The TE is the large truss structure that you see just to the right of Falcon 9 on your screen. The first stage is connected to a launch mount at the base of the TE, but the TE is hinged and will retract about 2 degrees.
Pressing for strong back retract.
There's confirmation from Mission Control that we're pressurizing the tanks on Falcon 9 in preparation for that retraction we were just talking about. Now again, the TE is going to pull away just about 2 degrees away from Falcon 9 in preparation for liftoff, and that will begin by opening up the clamp arms around the base of the fairing. So hopefully we'll have a view of that for you in just a couple of seconds. You may also hear the TE referred to as the strongback by our Mission Control team, and it does a lot of heavy lifting in the lead up to launch. The strongback is designed to transport, raise, and support Falcon 9 at the launch pad. There's confirmation that lowering has started, and we're getting a great view of those clamp arms opening up on your screen there. Falcon Falcon 9's payload fairing is about 17 feet in diameter, so just for a quick frame of reference, the fairing on your screen would house roughly an average-sized fire truck. The TE is equipped with umbilicals, or flexible lines, that are used to route the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry from the ground systems to the rocket and payload, until Falcon 9 switches to internal power and clears the launch pad. You can see the TE pulling away from Falcon there. And just at liftoff, we'll see it move back to a full 45-degree retraction to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent. At this point in the countdown, both the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of rocket-grade kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The first and second stages should finish propellant loading about a minute apart from each other. We're expecting the call out for first stage completion at the T-3 minute mark, and the second stage call out should be at T-2 minutes. As you may have noticed, there are white clouds forming around the vehicle on our launch pad right now. Those clouds are comprised of chilled gas from above the surface of the liquid oxygen tank that is vented overboard to maintain pressure in the tanks as needed. When that vented oxygen mixes with the warmer California coastal air, it condenses into clouds.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
There's confirmation of Stage 1 liquid oxygen loading completion. Next up, we are standing by for the same call out on board Stage 2. Then at T-60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers will take over the launch countdown. Then just inside of T-2 seconds, we will light the M1D engines for liftoff. At this time, the payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still green, and the range is ready to support our T0 of 11:49 p.m. Pacific time. And with that great view, we are proceeding into the last few minutes of terminal count.
Now, as our next major milestone, we're listening in for the call out of second stage LOX loading completion. There you see a great view of those white clouds.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
Great confirmation of Stage 2 LOX loading completion. So the first and second stages are now fully loaded with over 1
Ground
million.
gas closeouts.
Confirmation of gas closeouts beginning, and you may begin to see a noticeable increase in white cloud formation near the vehicle. This is the result of a nominal ground side process where the TE liquid oxygen feed line is vented down ahead of liftoff. If you listen closely, you can actually hear the sound of that large line venting down on the launch pad. Standing by now for confirmation of Falcon 9 in startup at T-1 minute.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
At this point, the autonomous flight computers will take over the launch countdown, and stages 1 and 2 will pressurize for launch. Finally, we are awaiting the final go directive from the launch director.
Launch director is go for launch.
There you have it. At T-36 seconds, all systems are go for launch of Falcon 9. So let's sit back and listen in to the final countdown.
30 seconds. T-15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go NROL-57.
And we have a successful liftoff. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
Some good call outs there.
In case you're just joining us, these awesome ascent views are of the NROL-57 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office. And we had an on-time liftoff tonight at 11:49 p.m. and are getting good news from Mission Control that power and telemetry are looking good on board the vehicle.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
And the Falcon 9 is now moving faster than the speed of sound. Coming up next, the vehicle will be passing through Max Q, which is the point in the mission profile.
Max Q.
Right on schedule, the vehicle has experienced the greatest amount of aerodynamic pressure that it will see on ascent. Now coming up next, we'll have several events happening in quick succession, starting with main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, second engine start 1, and then our boost back burn. Main engine cutoff, or MECO for short, is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage sep, when the first
has started.
and second stages will separate from each other. We also heard that call out from Mission Control that we're chilling our second stage engine in preparation for startup. The MVAC engine on the second stage will light for the first time during second engine start 1, which we'll hear called out as SES1. This engine burn will last for several minutes and propel the second stage and the payload to their intended orbit. Our boost back burn will assist the first stage in returning to its recovery location at landing zone 4, also at Vandenberg Space Force Base. In addition to these major events, the fairing halves will separate about 30 seconds after SES1. So keep an eye out for all of those events coming up here in just a couple of seconds. But as a reminder, we won't
Main
have...
engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed. Stage 1 boost back startup.
We've had confirmation now of MECO, stage separation, and boost back burn startup, and are getting incredible views from our tracking camera right now. Now, as a reminder, we're not showing any views of the Falcon 9 second stage or payload today at the request of our customer. We are, however, standing by for that call out for fairing deployment.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Right on schedule. Both payload fairing halves supporting today's mission are flight proven. One half is flying for its 17th time and the other for its 4th. We will, of course, be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves again today once they fall back to Earth with our recovery vessel Go Beyond.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
And we have confirmation of boost back burn shutdown.
We are currently at T plus 3 minutes and 30 seconds into tonight's mission following a successful liftoff from Vandenberg
Vehicles
Space.
are following nominal trajectories.
Good call out for trajectories. Our nominal liftoff time today was 11:49 p.m. Pacific time. And coming up in just a few minutes will be the entry burn of the Falcon 9 booster as it continues on its journey towards landing zone 4. This entry burn is the second of 3 burns that Falcon 9 will complete in its descent. Now, as a reminder, tonight's mission is a return to launch site recovery, which involves landing the first stage back at Vandenberg Space Force Base at landing zone 4, which is just a short distance from Space Launch Complex 4 East. Now, to start the entry burn, we will relight 3 of the 9 Merlin M1D engines, which is similar to pumping the brakes to slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. We need to slow the vehicle down to reduce re-entry forces, which then helps us recover and reuse the first stage. During this entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but it's still moving really fast. This causes the vehicle to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, also known as the rocket's plume, which deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle's surface. That soot comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses, and with each flight, that soot builds up a little more on the outside of the vehicle. Now, it's this layer of soot that gives Falcon 9 its flight-proven look. Reusability of this kind is key.
Well, I guess today they are not even showing the first stage view. Hopefully we will be getting the views of the landing or the first stage at least. Now we are expecting the entry burn to start up.
One entry burn startup.
And there is a confirmation. We have just lit 3 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Right now we are rapidly slowing down the vehicle as it enters the Earth's atmosphere. You can see from the telemetry on the bottom left hand side of your screen, and this burn is just got completed. Stage 1 entry burn shut down, and it's confirmed that the stage 1 entry burn has been made. Stage 1 FTS being saved as well, meaning the stage 1 entry burn has been accomplished. Now sooner the stage 1 first stage will be in a transonic phase, traveling slower than the speed of sound as it heads towards the landing zone 4 for its landing. And there we go. We got great views of the landing burn with the center E9 engine now lit. We are now slowing down the vehicle more rapidly. Should be seeing those landing legs deploy any seconds now.
Keep an eye out for landing leg deployment just prior to touching down at landing zone 4. This is the final
Stage 1 landing leg deployed. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And there you heard the call out for a
Well, that was a tracking view camera, although I think thermal view camera as well. Well, that's fine, but we did got a successful call out for the stage 1 landing. We have successfully made the 402nd landing of an orbital class Falcon 9 rocket. Coming up next, we'll have the second stage engine cutoff, that is SECO 1, and following that event we will enter into about 44 to 45 minutes of coast phase as the vehicle ascends to its target orbit, which is unknown due to the classified nature of the NRO. And with that, we will wrap up our coverage. Today's launch marks the SpaceX's 461st successful mission, with landing marking their 421st success. But before wrapping up our coverage, we want to thank you all for wherever you are watching our live coverage. Really can't do this broadcast without you. Thank you for your continued support for what we do here at AstroYonder. Be sure to check out our social media handle on X for the latest happenings in space industry and updates on upcoming launches. Once again, apologies for missing out those past launches and streams. We hope you enjoyed the stream. Really appreciate everyone joining us for today's launch. Wishing you a nice week ahead. This is AstroYonder Live and me Dipto signing off for now, and we will see you next time.